I'd like to eliminate income tax in New York State. I believe raising the sales tax, at least you have a choice of whether you want to buy the item or not. People going to work, I mean, what's the government do to really provide me going to work? I mean, as a UPSer, they don't do anything to provide my job, but yet they keep taking taxes out of my paycheck. Well, the way I look at it, somebody making that $15 an hour, if that $35 extra from state taxes was back into their check every week, that would go right back into the community, whether it be gas, food, or whatever. Their products that they need for themselves or their family, they're going to spend the money back in their community no matter what. So the state's going to generate that revenue no matter what. Don't take the money from when people go to work. People work hard. You know, and when they get their paychecks and they look at it and their 30% of it's gone, they're wondering, man, was it worth it? You know, I don't know. Some people, it's probably not worth it. And, you know, let people keep their money.
You'd like to lower the tax base for businesses in New York State. The businesses
Absolutely.
are getting hit hard.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, what they did to the unemployment insurance, you know, they laid everybody off. They made companies and businesses lay people off because of COVID, and then they bring everybody back to work, and then they raise the unemployment insurance. The state gets all this money from the federal government, and they don't bail out that fund. So that puts the burden on our small businesses. It's not helping. It's not helping. These people are feeling the pinch, and more businesses are going to shutter. And you know, it's unfortunate. You know, I drive through towns, and more people are just moving out of New York State. It's sad to see. It's really sad to see. Our healthcare system used to be one of the best when I was growing up as a kid. It's in shambles now. It's in shambles. You know, because we're pushing people out of New York. Doctors, nurses, they don't want to come to New York and work. I mean, you know, we're pushing vaccine mandates on a vaccine that is, you know, is kind of experimental. You know, I'm not anti-vaccine. You know, polio, a great vaccine. You know, these are vaccines that work. But you bring in COVID and, you know, people are still getting COVID right after they get the shot. You know, it's concerning. It's concerning to sit there and mandate a vaccine that's kind of experimental on the human race. That was very concerning. That's another reason why I'm kind of running. You know, that was concerning. People didn't have a say. And we were doing the right thing. We were social distancing. We were wearing masks. We were washing our hands. We were doing exactly what our government told us to do and guided us to do. They went above and beyond when they tried to mandate vaccines and mask our kids in school. Why Kathy Hochul was out having parties and no mask. I mean,
So for the healthcare workers,
Sure.
You think that was an overreach on the part of the
Big
state
time.
to require healthcare workers to either be vaccinated or lose their jobs?
Absolutely. I mean, think about that. You gotta make a choice to make a living or get a vaccine that you don't know works or it's gonna save your life, or, I mean, there's a lot of questions behind it. And, you know, that's concerning to me. I'm a Catholic. Me personally, I didn't want to get the vaccine just because I didn't know enough about it. Listen, if you educate me enough and I see that it's working and it's doing what they say it's going to do, I'm 100% probably going to go get that vaccine. I mean, to this day, I don't think they should be mandating the vaccine, and especially on our children. If they try to do that, I think you're going to see a mass exit of parents pulling their kids from public school. I think it'd be a huge mistake for the state of New York to do that. I know the CDC just approved it. That's concerning. But I don't think the New York State should implement that in our school systems.
And I know that was a concern of yours last year.
It was.
The mask mandate at Northern Adirondack Central School, where your children go.
Yep, I did participate in the, it was a walkout to protest the mask. Again, you know, we saw the governor having, you know, campaign parties or fundraising parties, and everybody in the room's not wearing a mask. You know, is this really a pandemic, or is this just a control tactic, something to use to control people? And I don't know.
Should it have been up to the local educators, the local school
Yeah,
districts to
I'd like to
decide?
localize government as much as we can. You know, we elect these people, and that's where the accountability happens. Well, you know, it's nice to be able to go to my local legislator because chances are I'm going to know him on a personal level, or he lives in my community, so he sees what I'm seeing, or he's heard from other parents or constituents that might have the same concern. So localizing government is the best recipe that we can have. I mean, centralizing it, we have no accountability. You know, and we saw that with our schools too. Our administrators really didn't have a say. They were pointing to Albany, you know, saying they were being dictated by that. And I know funds kind of play a part in this too. They kind of, I don't know if I should use the word blackmail our schools, but they control our schools with funding, saying if you don't do this, you don't get that. I find that very concerning. You know, as a public school system, I think that should be revamped. We have business offices at every single school district. How much money does that cost the taxpayer? How many people work in these business offices? It's public schools. Why don't we send money to this county and distribute it amongst their schools in one pot? That way, schools can make sure they get enough funding for the next year. You know, because if they don't, the way it works, if they don't spend that money, they don't get as much funding the next year. You know the deal. Well, I think we could eliminate that by putting it in a pool within the counties, having the legislators and superintendents kind of control that. And if Sable needs a little bit of help, or Northern Adirondack needs more funding this year, we have the ability and the flexibility to move those funds to where they're needed. And we can eliminate some of these business offices because it is public funding. You know, we want to protect the taxpayer. And I think a lot of times we don't think about the taxpayer anymore. It's all about revenue and money and, you know, you know, and when it comes to politicians in New York, it's holding on to power too. You know, listen, I'm willing to vote for term limits the first day I get there. You know, I want to end corruption. I think it would help. We need change, and we need to think outside the box. And I just think in the political realm, they're in such a bubble that they don't know what the average citizen is going through and experiencing and feeling. And you know, as someone that goes door to door and talks to a lot of people, you know, I think people want somebody to think outside the box.
Democrats do have a hold on power in Albany, strong majorities in both the Assembly and the Senate. If you're elected and you become a member of the Assembly, it's likely that Democrats are still going to have the majority in the Assembly. How would you be able to be effective as a member of the minority?
Well, I would surround myself with a good team. That's where it starts. You know, I would probably hire somebody that's worked in Albany before, along with some local people that I have in mind, some very good people. You know, and I'm willing to compromise too. I can work with anybody. You know, and I want to do what's right for the North Country. I want to be a strong voice for them, but I think they're looking for somebody to stand up too. You know, to both parties. You know, I'm a Republican, but if my party isn't doing something right, I don't have a problem speaking up for my constituents. You know what I mean? I'm there to represent my constituents. You know, I plan on having town halls. My opponent hasn't had a town hall, I don't think, since 2017.
Winter's coming, and with inflation, National Grid is predicting a nearly 40% increase in energy costs this winter. Congress has passed an additional $1 billion in emergency supplemental low-income home energy assistance, known as LIHEAP, emergency funding nationwide. About $60 million of that will come to New York State. What additional steps do you support the state taking to try to lower heating and energy costs for folks this winter?
Eliminate the ban on fracking. Let's be an energy independent country, state. I mean, we got natural gas. Let's start pumping some gas, lowering the cost for folks.
The Clean Water, Clean Air and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act is on the ballot this November, asking New Yorkers to approve borrowing up to $4.2 billion, about $1 billion for climate restoration, $1.5 billion for climate change mitigation, $650 million for open space land conservation, $650 million for water quality improvement. A big bond question that's coming up. Every voter in New York will be facing it this November. Where are you on it, do you think?
I'm voting no. I think the taxpayer has bared enough of the burden of tax, and that's just going to add to the tax on the taxpayer. More taxes, just more taxes, more spending by the state, bigger government. I'm looking to reduce government, localize it, reduce cost. $226 billion budget, bigger than Florida and Texas combined, less people. What are we spending our money on?
Stephen Chilton III, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the time. Thank you.